In this video, I'm going to review one of the most interesting bikes to come out in the last couple of months, and that is the All-City Gorilla Monsoon. I know a lot of you have been waiting oh so patiently for this review, and it's finally here. Find out what I like and dislike about the Gorilla Monsoon. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you love to ride bikes but don't necessarily race and are interested in things like gravel bikes, monster cross bikes, if you know what those things mean, then you have found your people. Welcome to the Supple Life. So way back at Frostbike, QBP announced 3 interesting bikes: the Surly Midnight Special, the Salsa Journeyman, and the Gorilla Monsoon. All of these bikes offering a 650B option. I've had the chance to review the Midnight Special and the Journeyman. If you haven't seen those videos, be sure to check them out. And finally, I got the chance to review the Gorilla Monsoon. Before I jump in, I want to stress once again that this review, like all the other reviews, is completely independent. I'm not getting paid by QBP. If you buy or don't buy the bike, I'm not making any money off of it. And this is really all made possible by you guys, by your direct support. That allows me to do actual reviews without relying on advertising money from the same companies of the products I'm reviewing. So thank you. And if you want to keep supporting independent reviews, be sure to check out the link below. So I have to admit, out of all the 3 QBP releases, the Gorilla Monsoon was the bike I was most interested in. I mean, not only does it look hot, but it ticks all those buttons in the kind of bike that I would want to purchase next. So did I like it? Is it as awesome as I hoped it would be? Well, let's find out. So the Gorilla Monsoon is what All-City is calling a monster cross bike. You can do road riding with, bike packing with. It's basically a beefed up all-rounder. It's an all-steel frame and fork, which is using what they're calling a 612 chromoly tubing mix that's double-butted. It's disc brakes front and rear with Hayes mechanical disc brakes. It ships with some WTB Riddlers that are 27.5 by 2.4 inches. And the frame and fork has all the little nubbins that you could ask for. You can run a front rack, load rider rack, tour rack, rear rack, and fenders. If you ride thirsty, then you're in luck. It's got 3 mounts for bottle cages. So as you can see, it's really set up with the utility in mind. You can use it for touring, for bike commuting, bike packing, whatever. The handlebars are a Salsa Couchupper, which is my current new favorite handlebar, by the way. The drivetrain is a mix of components, mostly SRAM. It's 1x, it's got a FSA Comet crank in the front with 36 tooth. And in the rear, you have an 11-42 Sunrace cassette and a Apex 1 long cage derailleur. It's a pretty good range. I found that riding even in the hilly stuff here in Montana, I didn't have too much of a problem. I think if I were gonna go fully loaded, I would change that front chainring to something smaller or swap out the entire drivetrain for a double, which you can do. And as a quick sizing note, I am 5'8" with a 29-inch inseam. I usually ride a 52 centimeter frame when it's measured off of the top tube. And for me, in All-City, that equates to a 49. The effective top tube is 53.5. It fit pretty well, just like my All-City Space Horse, which is also a 49. All right, that's it for specs. That's it for specs. How does this bike ride? Is it steady and staid like the Salsa Journeyman, or is it a little rowdy like the Surly Midnight Special? Well, it's actually an interesting combination of both. So when I first hopped on, the first thing that really grabbed my attention was the front end handling. It actually felt strangely super stable. I'm gonna use the word slow, but not necessarily in a negative connotation. It didn't have the quick snappiness that you would expect from a road bike, but what that does is it gives you massive stability, especially on fast, rocky descents. The front wheel just wants to hold its line, so this makes it perfect for gravel road riding, where if you hit a baby head or something, it's not gonna throw you off course into the ditch. It'll just keep on plowing through. So there is a little bit of a trade-off in that front end. I found that it took a little bit more input, a little bit more body English to get the bike to bank in a corner. But if you're not, doing crit races with it, then, it's not a whole lot to lose. I think you gain a ton in terms of stability and off-road terrain, which I think this bike really is optimized for. In terms of the rear end, it felt semi-tucked. There was some quickness back there, but it wasn't super fast. Certainly quicker feeling for me than the Salsa Journeyman, but not as snappy as, say, the Surly Midnight Special. So it really kind of falls somewhere in between. The rear end kind of reminds me of the Salsa Warbird, and that's not a bad thing. I love the Salsa Warbird. So what we have generally when you take that front and rear is a kind of semi-tucked rear end and a really stable handling front end. In some ways it was slightly unbalanced, but after a couple rides I felt completely at home on it and actually really liked it. The rear end felt responsive enough that, you know, during climbs it felt like when you gave it the inputs the bike would move, and going down those super fast descents the front end kept you super stable. I will say one thing to note about this bike is that it's not a light bike. I think the stock build with nothing else on it, using my bathroom scale, okay, granted, it's not the most accurate way to weigh things. It still came out to be about 28 pounds-ish. And even when I swapped out the massive 2.4-inch tires for the 50mm Gravel Kings, it still stayed there in the upper 20s. So not a light bike if that's important for you. For me personally, for a bike like this, you know, weight is not the end all. So let's move on to the tires. It ships with the WTB Riddlers, which is a lot of meat. So unless you are getting this bike specifically to do a dirt and gravel tour or live in some place where you're constantly commuting over rocky terrain, then imagine a lot of people are going to actually swap these tires out for a little bit more everyday friendly tires. So that's what I did. I swapped out those 2.4s and put on some Gravel Kings that are 650B by 1.9 inches. And the difference was pretty noticeable. I found that there was a little bit more steering quickness with the smaller tires. I don't know if that's a function of a change in the trail number because of the smaller outer diameter of the tire, or if there was just like less rubber nubbins grabbing onto the surface. In any event, it did add a little bit more liveliness to the Gorilla Monsoon, which I actually really liked. I think a tire like the Gravel Kings or another kind of supple casing, high performance 1.9 to 2.1 inch tire would make a great everyday tire for the Gorilla Monsoon, where you're not taking it on super rocky technical terrain. I think if I were to purchase a bike like this, that would be kind of the tire that would live on there most of the times, and I'd bring out the 2.4 inch tires when the going was really going to get rough. I rode a loop here twice, both on the 2.4 inch tires and the 1.9. There was a noticeable difference in just general speed. You just have less rubber to move around. It felt quicker overall in the steering, but you still had good stability even going on rocky descents. There's something about that front end geometry that really just prevents the wheel from flopping around and being tossed when it hits a rock. So what don't I like about the Gorilla Monsoon? Well, there's actually not a whole lot. I mean, I think the aesthetics are on point. I think it's a cool contemporary build with contemporary geometry that's addressing the needs of the gravel rider or the dirt tourer today. If there is something I'd love to see, is I'd love to see a version of this bike with a slightly shorter chainstay, actually. I feel like it was approaching that tucked slash slack geometry, but it went semi-tucked. I'd love to see it go all the way, really bringing those chainstays to the length of something that was on the Surly Midnight Special. In fact, I think if you took the rear end of the Surly Midnight Special and took the front end of the Gorilla Monsoon, put it together, kept the color scheme of the Gorilla Monsoon though, and that awesome looking biplane fork, then that would be my perfect bike. So it's close, it's so close. So would I personally buy the Gorilla Monsoon? Well, amongst those three bikes, because of the stable I already have, I think I would. I mean, the issue is actually trying to find one. From what I hear, these are in pretty high demand. I think they probably made like 6 of each size, it sounds like. They're super fun, and I hope this review actually gives you a sense of what this bike is like to ride. I know a lot of you live in places where availability of bikes like this are a little thin, so it's my intent with these videos to really give you a sense of what these bikes are like outside of all the marketing copy. Like, what is the actual user experience? So who is this bike for? I think if you're looking for a do-it-all bike that looks hot, I mean, it just looks awesome, that is a little bit more inclined towards dirty roads than paved roads, then the Gorilla Monsoon is definitely for you. You should check it out. I think if you're going to do more paved riding, then the Surly Midnight Special might be the better choice. I mean, for me personally, I would lean more Gorilla Monsoon. but that's just me. You do you. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys found this review useful. If you guys have any other questions, leave those in the comments below. And if you like these reviews, if you want more independent bike content, then definitely consider contributing to the channel. That's how I keep this thing going. I'm not taking ads from anyone. So until next time, like, share, subscribe, and keep the supple side down.